Good morning to everybody. The history of our company, Venezia Terminal Passeggeri, is a history of success. But I never expected in life to see how difficult it can be to be successful. Because in fact, the Venezia Terminal Passeggeri was one of the first privatizations made in Italy in order to devote a special company for the growth of cruising business in a port. The port of Venice is much wider than that. But what you see now on the slide is the old commercial harbor of Venice, which has been rejuvenated and reconverted in a few years into a very modern cruise facility. And this seemed to be the best location ever, because as you can see, at the beginning of the cruise history in the town of Venice, which is a UNESCO site, so it's a very delicate environment, a very, let's say, a town which is always under the attention of the world-wide public opinion. At the beginning of the cruise history, most of the cruises were located in the very heart of the historical city. If you see in the picture down there, you can see the St. Mark's Square, which is one of the most famous squares in the world. And at the beginning of the cruise traffic, Venice was obligated to put the big cruise ships in the very heart of the city. So what we have been developing with the rejuvenation of the commercial harbor seemed to be the best solution in order to move the ships from the very center to the side of the city, providing all kinds of best connections for the traffic of passengers. In fact, nowadays, the cruise port of Venice has got plenty of open areas, so an excellent viability, but it has got excellent connections to the historical center, because you will see from the next slides, we have even a monorail connecting the cruise port to the historical center. We have a direct connection with the highway. We have a direct connection with the railway. We have the airport of Venice, which is the third airport in Italy, just 5 minutes away from the cruise port. So this seemed to be the best location for everybody. With this kind of a structure, because the refurbishing of the old commercial harbor gave us the possibility to bring 12 ships together at the same time inside the rejuvenated and reconverted area. On the right side, you see the old part of the harbor for smaller ships, luxury ships, where the passengers can disembark and be directly in touch, in contact with the historical town. On the left side, you see the part of the harbor which is used for the biggest ships. And we were very happy to reconvert all the old warehouses and buildings which were used for the commercial harbor into modern cruise terminals. Venice has become, for its location, because it's the gate to the Eastern Mediterranean, so to the most beautiful cruises you can make, to Greece, to Istanbul. Mr. Ward knows them all. As a gateway to the East, it became immediately a very successful home port. Nowadays, 91% of the operations we make are home port operations. The passengers start their cruises from Venice, spend a lot of days in Venice before taking the cruise to enjoy the location. They even bring their benefit in terms of economical revenue to the Dolomites, to the mountains, or to the thermal area of Abano. So all the region is making money with the cruises, and we estimated, together with the University of Venice, the economical department, that the home port operations, since we reached the record number of 1.8 million passengers a year, provides 400 million euros of economical benefit to the area, both in tourism expenditure, 400 million euros a year, both in, let's say, tourism expenditure, or if it means buying fuel, or if it means giving, let's say, technical services to the ships. And as you can see, once again, you have a very well-distributed area with excellent parking spaces inside. And if we go to the numbers, you see that we served already 18 million cruisers during our history, and we had an exceptional growth, which reminds the growth of Busan. So it was really booming, 479% of growth since the company was established in 97, 10% of annual growth of the passengers. We already managed 3.5 nearly million pieces of luggage. And in a single day, we can have nearly 40,000 people going up and down inside the cruise port. So it really has been a wonderful machine, a wonderful operational machine, and distributed along 3.5 kilometers of quays, moving massive amount of people. In order to reach this kind of level, of course, we had to provide buildings, as I said, with a very generous number of square meters per passenger. Our latest achievement was the terminal 109, 110 on 2 levels, which is 14,000 square meters of surface for a single ship, which means when you have big ships served by this terminal, that every single passenger will have approximately 2 square meters available to wait to make his check-in operations or to make the luggage claim in the earth, in the ground level. Also very important in all this history and development was to provide enough gangways, because the boarding bridges connecting the buildings to the ship when you make port operations are paramount. You need to have all the passengers, let's say, floating in the air. You have too many operations to make in order to bring the provisions to the ships. You can have hundreds of trucks in a weekend serving the congested port. You can have hundreds of taxis and thousands of private cars which come to the port. So the docks need to be absolutely secure, clean, and you have to move the people to make a safe embarkation with the boarding bridges. We even developed our own engineering company, VTP Engineering, and we were the first port to develop a boarding tower, which is a totally different concept. I mean, if in your port you have a terminal which is operating only from the ground because you have less money to invest on the building, or you don't need a second level because you're not making home port operations and you're just making transient calls, this kind of concept allows you to have 3 elevators inside the tower in order to move the people from the ground level up to the best level of the ships in order to have a nice and, let's say, comfortable and, let's say, emotional embarkation. The cruise ships count very much on the wow effect. So embarking the passenger from, let's say, the area of the crew, just from the dock level, or embarking the passenger from the noble level inside the big halls and the big saloons of the ship is a different approach. And also the luggage, when you are home port, is a big concern, because the cruise passengers want to have his luggage safely delivered, and the security has become a nightmare. There's a growing and growing pressure about the security of passengers and of luggage, and in most cases, in big cities, in sensible environments, UNESCO sites like Venice, the local authority want every luggage piece to be inspected very, very carefully. So we developed also new technologies, like conveyor belts, which go underneath the building in order to save room inside the building and have the luggage delivered right on the side of the dock. And also the conveyor belts to put the cages of of the luggage inside the ships were quite successful. You see, with these movable conveyor belts, you can board, let's say, 9 cages each minute inside the ship, which means that when you need to disembark all the luggage from the ship, it takes, even with a big ship, less than 1 hour to have all the luggage pieces delivered to the terminal. And as Mr. Ward said, it is fundamental nowadays to avoid waiting times, to avoid queues and let's say delays for the cruise passenger. The better the disembarkation and embarkation is, the more satisfied the customer will be. It is basic to provide a very quick, a very fast service. But, as I said, not every solution is completely successful. So the cruise terminal was an absolute advantage for the port authority and for the operators. It has been a wonderful money and operational machine. But being Venice a UNESCO site, when the size of the ships has been growing and growing, some people started complaining about this kind of impact on a historical town. The big channel you saw at the beginning in the wide image of Venice belongs to the state. It doesn't belong to the town. But the town started complaining about the kind of use the state, with the ships entering, was making of the port, because some, let's say, opinion makers, also some artists, even some Nobel Prizes, they didn't like to have modern ships as a contrast with the historical scenery of Venice. So the Port Authority and also our company, Venezia Terminal Passeggeri, was forced to think of a different solution. You see, on the right side of this map, you see the yellow track, which has been followed up to now and is still followed by the cruise ships entering the cruise port of Venice. In the meantime, we needed to find a compromise. It was wonderful to put the most beautiful ships of the world on one of the most beautiful canals or channels of the world. But at the same time, the political pressure became so high that the government tried to put a limit on the tonnage of the ships. So, let's say, from the physical point of view and technical point of view, the Port of Venice can receive ships with a maximum length of 340 meters, which means a tonnage of around 130,000, 140,000 tons of displacement. From, let's say, a political point of view, the compromise was to put a limit of 96,000 tons, which means that the ships that are entering now the historical channel, the yellow one, will have a maximum length of around 305 meters. Okay, so the visual impact is a bit lower than the biggest ones. But at the same time, being Venice the gate of the East, and being the cruise companies highly interested in keeping in Venice the biggest and latest products, we had to think of a new short channel, which you can see here in the round, in the round circle, just 4 kilometers, not much, which would solve any kind of problems, because the new ships, the new generation ships with 350, 360 meters of length would enter from the industrial channel of the Lagoon of Venice and reach the existing port. So this is just a short story to give you an example of how difficult it can be also to be successful in the cruise branch, because this branch has been extremely profitable for the region and for the city, but it has also been growing too quickly. And many ports around the world which have interesting, let's say, attractions and destinations to offer have the same problem of getting ready and being prepared for the new generation of ships. Thank you very much.